The translator who heard what others couldn't. The silent voices. The Museum of Lost Languages. Elena Torres walked through the empty halls of the Galactic Archive Museum, her footsteps echoing on the crystalline floors. She was the night shift security guard, a job that paid minimum wage and required very little beyond staying awake and checking doors. For a former linguistics professor from Earth, it was embarrassing work. But after humanity joined the galactic community 5 years ago, Earth credentials meant almost nothing. The museum held artifacts from thousands of extinct civilizations. Glass cases displayed ancient texts, communication devices, and cultural relics from species that no longer existed. Most visitors found it depressing. Elena found it fascinating. A human with no value. During the day, Elena watched alien tourists walk past the exhibits without really seeing them. The Corinthians would glance briefly at holographic displays before moving on. The Vex would scan items with their advanced sensors but show no real interest. The Zephyrians would float through the halls in groups, chatting about everything except the actual exhibits. Nobody cared about dead languages. Nobody except Elena. "Why do you waste your time here?" asked Crix, her supervisor. He was a Corinthian with blue-gray skin and 3 eyes. "These civilizations failed. Their languages are meaningless now. You should be learning living languages if you want a better job." Elena shrugged. Someone should remember them. Someone should care that they existed. Crix made a clicking sound that meant he thought she was foolish. Humans are sentimental creatures. This is why your species struggles to advance. You care about things that do not matter. After Crix left, Elena returned to her favorite exhibit. It was a collection of communication crystals from a species called the Harmonics. They had gone extinct 3,000 years ago during a galactic war. According to the museum's records, the Harmonics had used sound-based language so complex that no other species could understand it. The crystals were supposed to be recordings, but nobody had ever successfully played them. Dozens of linguists had tried over the centuries. All had failed. The night everything changed. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday when Elena heard the sound. She was doing her usual rounds, checking that all the exhibit cases were locked. As she passed the Harmonics display, she heard something. A very soft humming noise, barely audible. Elena stopped and listened carefully. The sound was coming from one of the crystals. She looked around to make sure she was alone, then moved closer to the case. The humming grew slightly louder. It had a pattern to it, like music but more complex. Elena felt drawn to it in a way she could not explain. Without thinking, she began humming along. Her voice matched the pitch and rhythm naturally, as if she had known the melody her whole life. The crystal suddenly blazed with light. Elena jumped back, her heart pounding. Inside the case, all 15 crystals began glowing. The humming sound grew louder and more complex. The lights in the museum flickered. "What did I do?" Elena whispered. Then she heard something else. Words. Not in any language she knew, but somehow she understood them. Finally. "Someone who can hear us. Someone who can listen with more than just ears." Understanding the impossible. Elena's hands trembled as she unlocked the display case. This was absolutely against museum rules, but something told her this was important. Very important. She carefully picked up the first crystal. It was warm in her hands and vibrating slightly. The humming filled her mind, and suddenly she understood. The Harmonics had not just used sound to communicate. They used emotion, rhythm, and intention. Their language was not about words but about feelings and ideas transmitted through carefully controlled vibrations. No translation machine could understand it because machines could not feel. "You are human," the voice said through the crystal. Elena understood now that it was not really a voice. It was meaning being transmitted directly to her mind through sound patterns. "Your species has something rare. You can hear both logic and emotion at the same time." "Who are you?" Elena asked aloud. "I am a memory. A recording made by the last survivors of the harmonics. We knew our species would end, so we created these crystals to preserve our knowledge. But we needed someone who could understand communication beyond simple words. Someone who could hear with their heart as well as their mind. Elena sat down on the museum floor, still holding the crystal. Why can I understand you when nobody else could? Because humans are bridges, the crystal explained. Your species evolved to communicate in many ways. Words, music, art, body language, emotion. You do not rely on just one method. This makes you unique in the galaxy. The knowledge within. Over the next hour, the crystal taught Elena things that no other living being knew. The harmonics had been the galaxy's greatest diplomats before they were destroyed. They could understand any species because they listened to more than just words. They heard intentions, fears, hopes, and dreams in the way other beings communicated. We stored more than just our history in these crystals, the memory explained. We stored techniques for understanding others. Methods for resolving conflicts. Ways to help species work together. We hoped someone would find them someday. But why didn't you teach others before you died? Elena asked. We tried. But the species who destroyed us did not want peace. They wanted dominance. They saw our ability to understand others as a threat. If everyone could truly understand each other, wars would be harder to justify. Elena felt tears on her cheeks. An entire species destroyed because they were too good at creating peace. Do not cry for us, the crystal said gently. We knew the risks. We chose to preserve our knowledge rather than use it as a weapon. Now you must decide what to do with what we have given you. The test. Elena spent the next 3 nights learning from the crystals. She told no one what was happening. Crix would never believe her, and she was not sure anyone else would either. The crystals taught her how to listen properly. Not just to words, but to everything beneath and around the words. Tone, rhythm, emotion, intention. They taught her how to sense when someone was lying, when they were afraid, when they really wanted help even if they could not ask for it. On the 4th night, Elena got a chance to use what she had learned. The museum's communication system crackled to life. Security, we have a situation at the main entrance. Hostile visitors demanding entry. They are armed. Elena ran to the entrance and looked through the security monitors. 6 Corinthian soldiers stood outside. They wore military uniforms and carried plasma weapons. What do they want? Elena asked the control center. They claim to be searching for stolen military equipment. They demand to search the museum immediately. Elena listened carefully to the soldiers' voices through the monitor. Using what the crystals had taught her, she heard beyond their words. They were not looking for stolen equipment. They were afraid. Desperate. And they were lying about why they were really here. One of the soldiers was speaking into his communicator. Elena could not hear the words clearly, but she understood the meaning beneath them. The human guard works here, she might know where. They were looking for something specific. Something they thought Elena might know about. Then Elena realized the truth. Somehow, someone had learned about the harmonics crystals activating. Someone knew that humanity had access to ancient knowledge. And they wanted to destroy it before it could be used. Making a choice. Elena had minutes to decide. She could let the soldiers in and pretend she knew nothing. She could hide the crystals and hope they would not find them. Or she could do something else. She picked up the communication device and spoke to the soldiers. This is Security Officer Torres. Before I open the doors, I need to verify your authorization codes. She listened carefully to their responses. The soldiers were surprised. They had not expected a human to challenge them. Their voices carried irritation and impatience. We do not need authorization from a human security guard, their leader said. Open the doors now or we will force entry. Elena took a deep breath. I understand you are frustrated. I can hear in your voice that you are under a lot of pressure. Someone ordered you to come here quickly and find something important. You are worried about failing. But forcing entry into a neutral cultural facility will create serious diplomatic problems for your government. There was silence on the other end. The soldiers had not expected her to understand their real emotional state. The museum contains artifacts from thousands of species, Elena continued. If you tell me what you are really looking for, maybe I can help you find it without creating an incident. She was taking a huge risk. If she was wrong about their intentions, this could go very badly. The soldiers' leader finally spoke again. His tone had changed slightly. You really can hear us. The reports were true. Humans have accessed the harmonics knowledge. Yes, Elena said simply. And if you truly understood what that knowledge is, you would know it is not a weapon. It is a tool for understanding. For peace. Peace, the soldier said bitterly. There is no profit in peace. No power. Our employers paid us to make sure this knowledge disappears. Your employers are afraid, Elena said. They profit from misunderstanding and conflict. If species could truly understand each other, their business model fails. But you are not like them. I can hear it in your voice. You became a soldier to protect people, not to destroy knowledge. Another long silence. Then the soldier said something that surprised Elena. What would you do if you were me? A new path. Elena made a decision that would change everything. I would walk away. I would report to your employers that the human guard knew nothing, that the crystals were inactive, that this was a waste of time. Then I would start asking yourself who you really want to work for. They will send others, the soldier warned. Probably, Elena agreed. But by then, this knowledge will be somewhere safe. And maybe, just maybe, you will help make sure the right people find it. The soldiers left without forcing entry. Elena watched them go, then immediately called Dr. Sarah Chen, the only other human who worked at the museum. Sarah was a curator who had always been kind to Elena. Dr. Chen, I need your help. And you are going to think I am crazy. The decision that changed everything. By sunrise, Elena had explained everything to Dr. Chen. To Elena's surprise, Sarah believed her immediately. I have been studying humanity's place in the galactic community, Sarah said. We have been treated as inferior because we lack advanced technology. But what if our real value is not technology? What if it is our ability to understand others? Together, they contacted the Galactic Council and requested an emergency meeting. Most council members were skeptical, but a few were curious enough to attend. Elena demonstrated what she had learned by accurately reading the emotional states of every council member present. She identified which ones were genuinely interested, which ones were skeptical, and which ones were actively hostile. She did this by listening to far more than just their words. The hostile council members tried to have her arrested. But the curious ones protected her. They wanted to know more about this ancient knowledge that humans could somehow access. We propose a new role for humanity in the galactic community, Dr. Chen said. Not as warriors or technicians, but as mediators. Let humans learn the harmonics methods and help other species understand each other better. The vote was close, but the proposal passed. Humanity would establish the first galactic mediation corps, trained in the ancient harmonics techniques that Elena had rediscovered. The bridge between worlds. Building something new. 6 months after Elena activated the harmonics crystals, the Galactic Mediation Corps opened its first training facility on Earth. Elena stood at the entrance, watching the first class of students arrive. There were 100 humans from all over Earth, carefully selected for their natural empathy and communication skills. Elena was now Director Torres, though she still felt uncomfortable with the title. She was only 32 years old, and 6 months ago she had been a night security guard. Now she was responsible for teaching others what the harmonics had taught her. Nervous? Asked Dr. Chen, who was now the course chief administrator. Terrified, Elena admitted. What if I cannot teach this properly? What if humans are not as good at this as the harmonics were? Then we learn and improve, Dr. Chen said practically. The harmonics did not become great diplomats overnight. They developed their skills over thousands of years. We are just beginning. The first lesson. Elena's first class sat in a circular room with perfect acoustics. The walls were designed to carry sound in specific ways, helping students learn to hear subtle differences in tone and rhythm. Communication is more than words, Elena began. Every species in the galaxy knows this at some level, but most have forgotten how to listen properly. They rely on translation devices that only convert words, not meaning. She held up one of the harmonics crystals. It glowed softly in her hands. These crystals taught me that understanding requires more than hearing. It requires feeling, sensing, and connecting with the being you are communicating with. You must listen with your whole self, not just your ears. A young woman named Maya raised her hand. How do we learn to do that? I have been communicating my whole life, but I do not think I am doing what you describe. Let me show you, Elena said. She placed the crystal on a resonance plate in the center of the room. I am going to activate this crystal. It will play a recording of a harmonics diplomat having a conversation. I want you to close your eyes and listen. Not just to the sounds, but to what is beneath them. The crystal activated, filling the room with complex harmonies. The students listened for several minutes. When Elena stopped the recording, she asked them what they had heard. Most described the sounds as beautiful but meaningless. But 3 students described something more. They felt emotions while listening. Curiosity, concern, and hope. Those 3 students naturally sensed what the harmonics diplomat was feeling, Elena explained. The rest of you can learn this skill with practice. It is not magic. It is about paying attention to details most people ignore. The galaxy watches. Not everyone was happy about the mediation core. Many powerful beings saw it as a threat to their interests. The Tsar Consortium controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. They made enormous profits by keeping different species from working together too efficiently. If a human mediator could help species understand each other better, they might start cooperating. That would be bad for business. Commander Vex of the Corinthian military saw the core as a challenge to traditional power structures. Strength comes from military might, he said in a public statement. Not from talking and feeling. Humans are weak. This mediation nonsense will fail. But there were also supporters. The Peaceful Worlds Alliance, a group of smaller species tired of being bullied by larger powers, saw the core as hope for real change. We have been trying to be heard for centuries, said Representative Lyra, a Vex diplomat. But the powerful species never truly listen. Maybe humans can teach them how. The first real test. 3 months into training, Elena received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. A serious conflict had erupted between the Corinthians and the Vex, 2 powerful species who had been enemies for generations. The dispute was over mining rights to an asteroid field. Both species claimed it belonged to them based on ancient treaties. Negotiations had failed. Both sides were preparing for war. We need a mediator immediately, the council representative said. Can your core help? Elena felt her stomach drop. Her students were not ready for something this serious. But she could not refuse. This was exactly why the core existed. I will go myself, Elena said. Along with my 3 most advanced students. Dr. Chen pulled her aside. Elena, this is incredibly dangerous. If you fail, it could destroy the core's reputation before we even get started. And both species have powerful militaries. You could be killed. If I do not try, thousands of soldiers will die in a pointless war, Elena replied. That is worse than failing. Meeting the enemies. The negotiations took place on a neutral station called Unity Point. Elena and her 3 students, Maya, James, and Kira, arrived to find the Corinthian and Vex delegations already there. They were sitting on opposite sides of a large conference room, refusing to even look at each other. Commander Vex led the Corinthian delegation. He sneered when he saw Elena. The council sent humans? This is an insult. We are discussing matters of war and territory. What can weak, sentimental humans possibly contribute? The THEX delegation was led by High Speaker Zin. She was equally dismissive. Humans had been in the galaxy for only 5 years. They understand nothing of our long history with the Corinthians. This is a waste of time. Elena sat down calmly between the two groups. Her students sat beside her, trying to hide their nervousness. You are right that we do not fully understand your history, Elena began. But maybe that is exactly what you need. Someone who can listen without centuries of prejudice. We do not need listeners, Commander Vex growled. We need the THEX to acknowledge our rightful claim to the asteroid field. And we will never acknowledge a claim based on falsified documents, High Speaker Zin shot back. Elena listened carefully. Using what the harmonics had taught her, she heard beyond the angry words. Commander Vex was not really fighting about asteroids. His voice carried frustration and fear. He was under pressure from his government to show strength. High Speaker Zin was also afraid, but of something different. Her voice carried worry about her people's future. The THEX needed the resources from that asteroid field desperately. Commander Vex, Elena said quietly. What are you really afraid will happen if you compromise on this issue? The commander's 3 eyes widened in surprise. I am not afraid of anything. Yes, you are, Elena said gently. I can hear it in your voice. You are afraid that your military superiors will see you as weak if you negotiate. You are afraid that giving any ground will make the Corinthian people lose faith in their military leadership. There was silence in the room. The commander stared at Elena, shocked that she had seen through his aggressive exterior. Elena turned to High Speaker Zin. And you are afraid that without the resources from that asteroid field, your people will not be able to support their growing population. You are worried about food shortages and economic collapse. High Speaker Zin's skin changed color slightly, a thick sign of emotional distress. How do you know these things? Because I am listening to more than your words, Elena explained. I am hearing what you are really saying beneath the arguments about treaties and territory. Finding common ground. Elena spent the next hour talking with both delegations separately. Her students observed carefully, learning how she used the harmonics techniques in real negotiations. With Commander Vex, Elena spoke about honor and strength. True strength is not about winning every fight. It is about protecting your people. If you can find a solution that keeps your soldiers alive while still securing resources for your species, that is strength. That is leadership. With High Speaker Zin, Elena discussed long-term survival. Your people need resources, but they also need peace. Another war with the Corinthians will cost lives and drain resources. What if there was a way to share the asteroid field? Both leaders initially rejected the idea of sharing. But Elena persisted. She helped them understand that their real interests were not in conflict. Both wanted security for their people. Both wanted to avoid a costly war. Both needed resources. What if the asteroid field was divided into zones? Elena proposed. The Corinthians control the outer zone, which has minerals useful for military applications. The THEX control the inner zone, which has the food production materials you need. A neutral zone in the middle serves as a buffer. That would require trusting each other, Commander Vex said. Yes, Elena agreed. And trust is hard. But consider the alternative. War will cost both your species dearly. Thousands will die. Resources will be destroyed. And at the end, one of you might control the asteroid field, but at what price? The breakthrough. The breakthrough came when Maya, one of Elena's students, made an unexpected observation. Excuse me, Maya said nervously. I notice that both delegations keep looking at the star map on the wall. And when you do, your voices change. You sound sad? Elena listened carefully. Maya was right. There was something in how both groups reacted to that map. That map shows the Harmony sector, High Speaker Zin said quietly. It was once home to both our species. We shared many worlds there before the Great Wars divided us. Commander Vex nodded slowly. My grandfather told stories of those days. Corinthians and Thex working together, building cities together. It is hard to imagine now. Why did it end? Elena asked. Fear, High Speaker Zin said. Resources became scarce. Each species feared the other would take more than their share. Small disagreements grew into conflicts. Eventually, we forgot how to be neighbors and only remembered how to be enemies. Elena felt something shift in the room. Both delegations were remembering a time before hatred. Remembering that cooperation was once possible. You can choose to repeat history, Elena said softly. Or you can choose to create a new history. One where Corinthians and Thex work together again, not because you have to, but because it serves both your peoples better than war. The agreement. The negotiations continued for 3 more days. There were setbacks and moments of anger. But Elena and her students kept helping both sides hear each other properly. They pointed out when fear was driving decisions. They highlighted shared interests. They reminded both groups of what they would lose in a war. Finally, an agreement was reached. The asteroid field would be divided into cooperative zones. Both species would share resources according to their needs. A joint monitoring station would ensure fair treatment. Most importantly, this would be the first step toward restoring the relationship that had existed before the Great Wars. I never thought I would sign a cooperative agreement with the Thex, Commander Vex admitted. But perhaps humans have shown us something we forgot. That understanding your enemy is the first step toward making them something other than an enemy. High Speaker Zen extended her hand toward the commander in a traditional Thex gesture of respect. Perhaps we were never meant to be enemies. Perhaps we simply forgot how to be friends. The impact. News of the agreement spread across the galaxy quickly. Reactions were mixed. The Peaceful Worlds Alliance celebrated. Humans have proven that mediation works, Representative Lyra announced. This is the beginning of a new era. The Tsar Consortium was furious. They had been selling weapons to both sides, expecting a profitable war. Instead, they lost a major customer base. Many military leaders were skeptical. One successful negotiation does not prove anything, they said. Wait until humans face a really impossible conflict. But something had shifted. Other species began requesting human mediators for their disputes. The Galactic Council expanded funding for the Mediation Corps. Elena's training facility could barely keep up with applications from humans wanting to learn these skills. The warning. One night, Elena was working late in her office when she received an encrypted message. It was from the Corinthian soldier who had led the group that tried to raid the museum months ago. Director Torres, this is Squad Leader Bryn. You showed me mercy when you could have reported me. Now I return the favor with a warning. The Tsar Consortium has put a price on your head. They see you as a threat to their business interests. Be careful. Not everyone wants peace. Elena showed the message to Dr. Chen. Should we increase security? Sarah asked. Yes, Elena said. But we cannot let threats stop us from doing this work. Too many lives depend on it. Training the next generation. Elena returned to teaching with renewed purpose. She knew that humanity's role as mediators would face challenges. Some species would reject them. Some conflicts would seem impossible to solve. And there were powerful forces who wanted the Corps to fail. But she also knew that the Harmonics had chosen to preserve their knowledge for a reason. They believed that someday, someone would use it to help heal the galaxy's divisions. In her classroom, Elena watched her students practice listening techniques. They were getting better every day. Some showed natural talent that amazed her. Remember, Elena told them. Our job is not to force people to agree. Our job is to help them understand each other. Real understanding makes peace possible. Without understanding, even the best agreements will eventually fail. The vision forward. 1 year after activating the harmonics crystals, Elena stood before the Galactic Council to give her first annual report on the mediation core. We have successfully mediated 47 disputes, she reported. We have trained 300 human mediators. And we have begun teaching our techniques to other species who show aptitude for this work. How long before humans can mediate the truly difficult conflicts? A council member asked. The centuries-old hatreds? The wars that seem impossible to stop? Elena smiled. We are already working on those. Yes, some conflicts are harder than others. But no conflict is truly impossible if both sides are willing to listen. Our job is to create the conditions where listening becomes possible. As she left the council chambers, Elena thought about the night she first heard the harmonics crystals. She had been a night security guard with no real prospects. Now she was helping to reshape how the entire galaxy approached conflict. But the work was far from finished. There were still wars to prevent, misunderstandings to resolve, and peace to build. The harmonics had given humanity a gift. Now it was humanity's job to use that gift wisely. Elena returned to Earth and to her students. There was so much more to teach them. So many more people who needed to learn how to truly listen. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, carefully, one conversation at a time. And it all started because one human security guard had taken the time to listen to voices that everyone else had ignored for 3,000 years. The end. At HFY Codex Archives original story.